welcome back or welcome to my channel. My name is Taylor and today we're doing the mid-year freakout tag. But before we hop in the video, remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you love all things books. Alright, so we are on year 2 of this channel, so this means this is the second mid-year freakout tag that I have done. So the way it's going to work out is I'm going to use the same questions that I had last year. I'm not completely sure who started the tag, but I will let anyone who knows that can comment down below. These are the questions I have saved from last year, and we're going to start out by going through, yearly reading stats. So as of today, July 2nd, I have read 43 books out of the 50 books that I set for my goal this year. I am, according to this, 18 books ahead. And I kind of always know I'm going to read more than 50 books, and I like to set my goals at achievable, so I feel good about myself anyways. In terms of the kinds of moods that I've been reading, lighthearted, emotional, and funny are my top moods for reading this year, and all of this stuff is on my StoryGraph. In terms of pacing, I've read mostly medium-paced books, which I feel like a majority of books are that way. I don't read a lot of thrillers, which I think are your mostly fast-paced books, so that kind of makes sense. In terms of amount of pages per book, I've read primarily under 300 pages. I like a quick short read. If it's under 300 pages, I am very tempted, and I love a good novella. Then I've read 88% fiction and 12% nonfiction. I feel like I was good at nonfiction reading, like memoirs and like just general nonfiction at the beginning of the year, and then I've kind of teetered off a little because, school ended and stuff like that. But yeah, in terms of my top genres so far, in first place, contemporary romance. Then we have queer fiction, young adult books, fantasy, and then it kind of goes off from there. So we obviously see she's a romance girly. And my most read authors this year are Lucy Eden, which is at 5 books for her. So Elsie Silver, which is it's at 6 books for Lucy Eden and then 4 books for Elsie Silver, and you might see some of that pop up. And then we have 2 Lauren Asher books because I've read her new Dreamland Billionaire series this week, Kimberly Lemming, which I'm going to talk about, and St. Abbey because I finished the Mindfuck series, and you know how it goes. And let's see, my worst reading month this year was May, and then for the most part, I've read about 8 books almost every other month, with the exception being January being about 7 books. So, yeah, but May was my reading slump year, and my average rating this year was a 4.41, and I've only had a couple books fall below that 4-star mark, and everyone who knows me, who watches me, knows that I'm a very generous, grader, or rater. So if you fall below 4 stars for me, it's usually, there has to be, something, that really gets me in a book, but hey. I guess now we can hop into the first question. And the first question is best book that I've read this year so far. And I have to say, this was a relatively easy one just because I haven't had that many 5 stars this year. So the first 5-star I gave this year was That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon by Kimberly Lemming. I'm just going to say the Mead Mishap series has made me so happy. Even when I was slumped out a little bit and just kind of burnt out on reading, these books were just quick, easy, one-night reads for me. I read this I don't think I read this one in one sitting. I think I read the second book in one sitting, but I definitely finished this within 2 days of it. And basically this follows, it's kind of like a romantasy, more like romance with, a touch of fantasy. And let's see, it follows Cinnamon, who one night is walking home and she is drunk and she gets attacked by a demon and, then she gets saved by a demon. And things ensue from there. And then basically a demon asks her to be like, okay, I need to go do this quest to stop this, false goddess from, taking over the lands. And then he asks her to go on it. And, things go from there. Fated mates. I have discovered that I have a thing for the fated mates trope. And this is 5-star. It is spicy, it is super funny, and it's just quick and fun. And I mean, what else can you ask for from a little rom-com? Then we have the best sequel that I've read so far this year. I've got a couple of books that are sequels to books, but in my mind, sequel obviously just book that comes after first book. So second, third, fourth, however many books in the series. I did finish the Mindfuck series this year, so my favorite was All the Lies, which was book 4 in the Mindfuck series. And if you don't know anything about this, you've probably been living on a rock because I feel like this has been talked about all over social media since 2020, 2021. It basically follows a female serial killer who falls in love with the FBI agent on her case, and it follows them across 5 different novellas of the case and her doing things and him trying to catch her, even though he doesn't know it is her. And I'm just gonna say, these last 2 books, chef's kiss. Love it all. I've already kind of talked about in my review like my ranking of the novellas, but highly recommend this series. Do check trigger warnings because there's a lot of graphic like violence and descriptions in this book. It is marketed as erotica, but I wouldn't say it's actually that spicy. It's more graphic in the other sense. Then we have a new release you haven't read yet, and the one that is at the top of the list that I will probably pick up this month because it's already come out is Leather and Lark by Bryn Weaver. I just saw the announcement that Bryn Weaver's first book in the series, Butcher and Blackbird, is getting turned into a movie. And I don't know how I feel about it. It's kind of the same way I feel about the Mindfuck series. I think it would make a great television show or movie, but also just given some of the content in there, I'm like, but should it be? I don't know. But if you don't know anything about Leather and Lark, it's going to be following the brother of the guy in the first book and the best friend of the girl from the first book. And essentially, I believe it is a bit of a marriage of convenience situation. And it's between a serial killer and a contract killer. And given the epilogue of book 1, I'm excited to see where this takes us. Plus, the covers are just, I love the covers, so. Then we have most anticipated releases for the second half of the year. So I picked 3 for this. The first one being Business Casual by B.K. Borison. The Lovelight Farm series is a series that I absolutely love. I binged all 3 of them at the end of 2022. Mixed Signals so far is my favorite. That's book 3. And this one I have been waiting for because it's just, I love little interconnected standalone small town romance, and B.K. Borison just knows how to write. She just knows how to write. She's like an auto-buy author, so can't wait to pick that one up. And then we have Play Along by Liz Tomford. The Right Move and Caught Up were 5-star reads. I know everyone is like talking about Mile High, and in my opinion, I didn't like dislike Mile High. To me, so far, it is definitely the weakest in the series. I do think it's worth it to read the book, or at least attempt to read it before you hop into the next 2 books in the series. But the 2 books after, chef's kiss. And Play Along follows the brother from book 3, Caught Up, and his teammate, somewhat. Either way, the epilogue of book 3 tells you what's going to go on, and it's basically essentially a marriage of inconvenience sort of situation. So yeah, plus as far as I know, it is a guy falls first and falls harder. And then last but not least, Daydream by Hannah Grace. We finally get Henry's book. If you don't know, Icebreaker was the first, like, I guess, adult romance that I, like, read once I got back into my reading era in my adult life, and I really, really liked it. And then Wildfire was just a fun read last year. And I'm just gonna say, Henry's book, we got a girly on the front who I believe is plus size, or, you know, not like, I believe she's plus size. She's got a Taylor Swift cardigan on her, so, you know, I'm excited, and those are the books that I'm most excited for the second half of the year. Then we have a biggest surprise. So a surprise can be a good thing or a bad thing. So in my mind, I'm going to take it as a good thing. And my biggest surprise was Dread Nation by Justina Ireland. This is a book that I picked up earlier this year, I think in like February, I don't know. But it's something that I had been seeing on the Books A Million shelves for a while. And it looked good. I mean, the cover is like real personal cover, not my vibe. But you know, it looked good. I was like, this is interesting. And then I bought it, and then it sat on my physical TBR for 3 months. And I just like never like got around to picking it up. And then I picked it up this month, and it was one of the best reads of the month. It was so quick and fast-paced. The writing is so good in this story that it just keeps you hooked and like keeps you going. Essentially, this answers the question of what would happen if zombies arose on the Battle of Gettysburg in the American Civil War, and you're following Jane, and who is at Miss Preston's, basically a school for formerly enslaved, or the children of formerly enslaved individuals who are now tasked with learning how to fight the zombies and stuff like that, and you're following her and her journey. It takes place in 1880s America, so do check trigger warnings because there is some language and discussions in there that are obviously going to be very triggering. But I gave it 4.75 stars, and I thought it was a great read, and I'm excited to see where it takes us in book 2, because I think it's only a duology, so I love that. I love that. I don't have to read multiple books after this. Then we have new favorite authors. So this could be a debut author or an author that is new to me. I'm going to choose an author that is new to me. Obviously, Kimberly Lemming, we love her. But for this one, I decided to showcase another book that was 5 stars this year, and that is by Talia Hibbert. I knew this was one of the authors I wanted to start reading this year, so when this went on sale earlier this year, I was like, ready. It was her YA debut, Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute, and it follows Bradley and Celine, who are both partaking in this Wildlife Explorer program in order to gain a scholarship, and it basically is childhood friends turned enemies turned lovers, and I loved it. She kind of balances that cutesy rom-com with that more emotional side to things, because we've got a main character who's dealing with OCD, and then the daughter who is dealing with essentially, a kind of like abandonment issue sort of situation going on, and Talia Hibbert just is, I knew instantly when I was done, I'm like, 5 stars. 5 stars. Even though I know not everyone thinks this is 5-star material, I think it's 5-star material. I thought it was great, and I'm very excited to see what else from Talia Hibbert, reaches that feeling. Then we have newest fictional crush, and I had to actually sit with this because no one really stood out this year, and then I thought there was one person, and that was Billy Black from Off to the Races. Billy Black is the woman in this book. This is the first book that Elsie Silver ever put out, and it's the first book I ever read by her, and it just got published, like traditionally published. So essentially this book follows Vaughn Harding, who is, taking control of Gold Rush Ranch after scandal has hit and his grandfather has passed away. So he hires Billy Black on to be the horse trainer to, get the horses up and running and to take care of one particularly finicky horse. And while they are working together, they, one, recognize they are attracted to each other, and two, just start, falling in love. And I don't know what it is to say about me, but Billy Black is just a very powerful, very self-assured, a very, she knows who she is, and some of the things she doesn't hear, I'm like, listen, if he screws it up, I will hop in, honey. I will hop in. So yeah, this basically solidified, from the first book, I'm like, I'm going to like Elsie Silver's writing. I may not necessarily love all of her books, but her writing and her character building, romance building, very well done. Then we have a book that made you cry, and honestly, I don't think I've cried at any books this year. So I just picked one that I think would be considered the saddest in terms of theming and plot, and that was A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. This essentially follows the brides of Dracula telling the story of them up until his death from their point of view, and it follows specifically Constanta, who is basically telling the whole story. And while I thought this book was really good, it basically is the whole story of giving a voice to the voiceless, specifically those who suffered in an abusive and toxic relationship, and giving their side of the story. I thought it was very good. I just didn't cry. And I don't go out of my way to read sad books, so it really comes out of left field if I pick up a book that makes me cry, but this is definitely the one that I think if you're gonna feel some feels, it would be that one. So then we had a book that made you happy, and I've read a lot of cutesy rom-coms this year, but I just thought I would mention Kimberly Lemon's second book, and that's That Time I Got Drunk and Yeeted a Love Potion at a Werewolf. The entire title tells you exactly what happens, but essentially this follows Cinnamon's best friend, Bree. If you hadn't figured it out, she tends to name her characters after food. And Bree essentially one night is out and about, and there's things going on, and someone throws a drink at a werewolf, and he looks around, and he's like, you are my fated mate. And this one actually has dual POV, whereas the first one didn't have it. And this one is just fun and spicy and a great time. And yeah, I finished this one in one sitting, so highly recommend the entire series. Then we have the most beautiful book you have bought this year, and in my opinion, it's the So Let Them Burn by Camila Cole. This is the author's debut novel, and let's just admire the beauty of those colors. We love it. We love it. Blue, pink, and purple. What's not to love? This is a queer fantasy inspired by Jamaican mythology. And so you're following Farron, who is basically doing everything in her power to break the dragon rider bond to save her sister Ilara. And this one is interesting to me because you're following Farron, who is the chosen one, but you're following her 5 years after she has chosen and saved everyone during war. And you have two different romantic plot lines going on in here because you have that dual POV of Farron and Alara, and they're both amazing. And I'm just gonna say I need book 2 because I need to know how one of these works out. This does have lesbian and asexual rep in it, so if you're looking for that, this one is very fun read, and it's a very aesthetic book to put on your shelves. I'm curious to see what the second cover looks like. Then we have books that you still need to read. So I went through my physical TBR because obviously those are the books that I really need to read, because otherwise why'd you buy them? Like, why'd you buy them? And I picked out 3 books that are like high priority on the list. The first one being the third Mead Mishaps book, which is That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Human. And this is following Dante, who appears first in book 1. You kind of get to know him a little more in book 2. But this one is interesting because I think it's the longest of the books. So I'm curious to see where this one goes. And then we have a book that, why haven't I read it yet? Who knows? Bloodmarked, the sequel to Legendborn. If you know anything, Legendborn was my favorite book of last year, and I even got the special edition sprayed edges version of this. Why have I put it off? Honestly, I don't know. Mainly probably because I know the final book in the trilogy doesn't come out till next year, so I have time. But also, like, I'm not prepared for where this takes us because there's a love triangle that I see a brewing, and I know what I want to happen. Then the last one I have is one of the more recent books I picked up, and I just want to read it because it sounds so good, and it says, every time you hear that song. So we're essentially following a dual timeline between this 17-year-old aspiring journalist, Darren, who is bisexual, and she is out here essentially doing some sort of like journey to discover things about her favorite artist. And then, what is the name? Deckley? Deckley is the artist who was recently passed away. So you're also following Deckley, who is falling in love with a woman back in 1960s, and sort of talking about that journey and sort of the history behind all the songs she wrote. And this just reminded me of something that I have read that I would like to replace with something a little different. And this is a YA novel, so I'm just curious. So obviously it's queer, so that makes me excited. So those are all the books that are definitely high priority on the list to read. Then, like I did last year, I added this question on. These are all the 5 stars that I have given out this year. The first 2 being the Mead Mishaps book, book 1, book 2. And then we have Mind Book series books 4 and 5, so All the Lies and Paint It All Red. And then Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute by Talia Hibbert. I've already talked about all these, but I've only given 5 stars this year. I don't know if that's saying that I've gotten, harsher as a rater, if I just am not finding quality books this year. I don't know, because I think I had 8 by this time last year, but I had also read less, I feel like, this time last year. But who knows? Let me know what books I should be prioritizing for the second half of the year, and what books did we have in common for some of these questions. And if you want to, answer them in the comments down below. And I'll see you next time.